Hi guys, and welcome back to another exciting episode. This time we're looking at Bodnant Gardens, and they're in North Wales. So we visited this garden, which is a garden created by a few different people, but this guy here, Henry Pochin, was one of the main drivers behind the garden design and the gardens. So as you go through the gardens, you can see there's a lot. It's a very big garden. Bodnant Gardens encompass about 2,000 acres. So it's one of those gardens that you can really sort of have a good wander around. You might not get to see it all in one day, but you'll get to see the main parts. So as we were walking around, this little garden here looked very nice as you walk down the long sort of pathway. One side you've got sort of herbaceous, brightly coloured perennials, and then on the other side you've got that water feature. That little entrance there was the exit and also goes to the plant nursery and the cafes. So let's have a quick look over at the plan, and you can see it is encompassing on top of the hill, where's where we are now, and it goes down to the dell and the valley. And so there's various gardens as we go along. You can have a look there. That's the Bodnant Hall, and it is a very large building which is private, so you can't actually access it. So this is the bath area. This was designed by Henry Pochin, and he basically had this for his family to bathe in. It was built on a prior pool by a previous owner, William Henry. So we're just going to have a quick walk down the pathway. There's lots of tropical plants down here, some banana palms, and it was quite a nice sort of subtropical garden. Looking at now the big front lawn areas, so some big lawn areas, and as we're on sort of the top of the hill, it goes down the top of the hill. So this house here was redesigned in an Italian style by John Forbes, who was one of the earlier owners. The Forbes family owned this property in the mid-1700s, and they were responsible for putting a lot of the larger trees in and putting a lot of parkland into the overall design. So these terraces now we're looking at were later incorporated, and they were done by the grandson of Henry, and he was another Henry, but he was Henry McLaren. So it can get a little bit confusing. So the top terrace here we're now looking at is the Rose Terrace, and so Henry McLaren and his mother Laura designed these gardens. That was quite a cool sundial, and I think it was placed there early on in the 1910. So basically we've got these terraces, and as we're going to sort of step down to various terraces, each garden is slightly different. There's a lot of water in this garden, used really quite well. So just a little bit of history about Henry Duncan McLaren. He was the grandson of Henry Pochin, and he was the guy that petitioned the National Trust in 1948 to take on gardens as well as buildings, because prior to that, prior to 1948, the National Trust only took on buildings. So Hitcot was the first National Trust garden, and Bodnant was the second in 1949 to be taken on by the National Trust. And so the families of the McLaren family have still maintained a very crucial interest in the place, and they do oversee a lot of the gardens and developments. So we're just looking at now the lily pond. Quite amazing, all those different lilies, and again a lot of use of perennials around the garden, and a kind of a little bit more of a formal layout, these gardens, as we're sort of stepping down in the terraces. And then we're going to pan back to have a quick look at the building. And then we come to the sort of final level. This is the canal terrace, and we have to go down lots of steps. This part of the garden did remind me of an Italian garden that I once visited, Axel Munt's garden on Capri, and it's got this really nice curving path going under the archways, these trellised archways. So some really nice reflections going on in the pond, and at one end you've got this is the pin house or the pin mill, and originally I think they thought they might go put that in the middle, but in the end it was decided for it to go to the side. Again, you can have a really nice pan. You can see how far we've come down. Beautiful water lilies. Now the pin mill was brought to the side in about the 1930s, but the actual mill itself dates back to the 1730s, and it was actually used to manufacture pins. You can see it's a really nice sort of feature at the end of the garden. I think now what they use that now for is in the summertime they have various musicians that will play from that building. So very nice formal clipped hedging. So we've got a combination of styles in this garden, which is really quite cool. You've got this really sort of almost formal Italian look, clipped hedges, a little bit like terraced, as in sort of the Villa d'Este sort of look, but also you've got, which we'll have a look at now, a more natural landscape. So what we're going to do now is going to head back to this is called the archery, and this was completed in 1880. It's around about 55 metres long. It's got this particular laburnum, not the original laburnum, but this is one that was planted a bit later, and apparently it looks really, really good in sort of early May when it's in flower. This is the natural landscape style that was sort of placed a little bit later on. So just a bit quickly about Bodnant, the meaning. So when the place was bought by Henry, it meant a sort of basically a dwelling on a hill, and now it means a dwelling by a river. Bodnant means a dwelling by a river. So you can see all the water use, and this is the old mill. This was put in by the one of the previous owners, William Hanmer.
The water would hit it, they would make sure they diverted the water to hit it, and it would turn it.
So it's very pleasant around here. You've got lots of hydrangeas. It's very pleasant to walk around. It's cool. There's large trees, and you've got this really cool sort of river running through the property. And this is pretty much now at the bottom of the property. This is the waterfall bridge, which was placed, and it's basically dammed to hold back the water, but you get this really, really cool waterfall effect. Now, this last bit here was called the poem in 1882. Henry Pochin had 6 children. Unfortunately, 4 of them died, so that was a place where they had dedicated that building to just to mourn and represent them. So we're going to head back now. We've pretty much completed the gardens. This is definitely a cool garden to go to see, one of the most famous gardens in England. Definitely recommend it. I'll leave you with a few snapshots, and we'll see you in the next one.